Hi, so basically I am making a video on how I VBAC because I was looking when I was going through the process. I was searching the internet and searching through YouTube, and I couldn't really find any videos with any women talking about the process or saying they were even thinking about the process. So I figured maybe this will help somebody. So basically, if you don't know what a VBAC is, it is a vaginal birth after C-section. So of course, I already previously had a C-section. How that kind of process went was I went into labor, and when I went into the hospital, labor was going great, and then my labor stalled. So I think I stalled at about 5 centimeters, and at that point I wasn't making any progress for several hours. So they decided to give me a C-section, and I had my first son delivered. He was almost 9 pounds, so he was a big baby. And so fast forward 3 years later, almost 3 years, I'm in labor with my second son. So when I first found out I was pregnant, I researched a lot of different hospitals. I live in Atlanta, so I researched some different places that would allow you to VBAC. So I wanted to make sure that I was at a hospital that even allowed you to do this, because in doing research, when I was pregnant the first time, I watched a movie. I don't know, probably a lot of you are familiar with it, called The Business of Being Born. And in this movie, there was a couple that were attempting to VBAC, and they had to actually go have their baby outside the United States because nowhere in their state would allow them to VBAC. So it is kind of a hard process, and you probably are going to be met with opposition from your doctors, from your family, about going through this process, because I definitely was. So basically, I decided to VBAC because after I had the C-section, I dealt with a lot of feelings, kind of that I didn't even talk to anybody about. Like, I felt like I had missed out on something, and I really didn't even share the fact that I had had a C-section with my first son with pretty much anybody, my friends or nobody. Just out my immediate family knew, because I kind of felt like I missed out on something, or I wasn't able to give birth the way other women give birth. But if somebody chooses a C-section, then that's fine for them, and those feelings don't happen for them, or they do and they deal with them, that's fine. But for me, I felt like I missed out on something. So with my second son, I really wanted to try to go through the process and see if I could even get to a place where someone would allow me to try to have a regular birth after C-section. Okay, so once I found a hospital that would allow me to be back, I then had to bring up the fact that I wanted to do this with my gynecologist, which when I first did, I could tell like she was not like happy, or basically her exact words to me were, well, since you already had a C-section, then there's probably no way at all that you're going to be able to have a natural birth after C-section. So I was a little discouraged, but I had already found the hospital and had already like gotten the green light that as long as my labor went okay, like there were no other complications, that I could possibly have a VBAC. So over my pregnancy, I think I brought it up to her a couple of times, and each time it was like her reservation was getting a little bit and a little bit less. So by the time I was at the end of my pregnancy, probably close to around the 8-month mark, she went ahead and said that they would let me go into labor instead of scheduling a C-section, because every time we talked about it. It wasn't a long conversation of rebuttal for me, but it was kind of like, let me make a comment just to let her know I'm kind of still thinking I want to try VBAC if that's an option for me. But I didn't want to force it too hard because I could already see her reservation. So again, at the end, she decided to let me go into labor. So once I did, I went into the hospital and my labor was progressing normally. So it was a long labor, but eventually I ended up having a baby. And I do understand why people have reservation with VBAC because there are a lot of risks, which I'm sure if you're researching this, you probably have already talked about this with your doctor, of rupture of your past incision and labor not going the right way and having to have an emergency C-section anyway. But luckily enough, I kind of like let the reins go. That's would be my best advice. And was in the process, like, if I'm able to VBAC, then that's wonderful and I'm going to be grateful. And if I don't, then I just can't and I don't. But having the experience was, I think, therapeutic for me to go down, at least try, which is why I tried it all, because I wanted to make sure that I had the experience that I felt like I was missing before. So if it's something that you want to do, don't let anybody really tell you no, because there are other options. There's other doctors you can go to in the other hospitals in your area, and hopefully not like the couple on business of being born. You don't have to go to Canada to have your baby. But I would say there was a lot of fear, I think, in not having it happen like it had before. Like, normally people would think there is a lot of fear attached to a C-section going in to have surgery. But right when they came in the room and was like, okay, now it's time to push, I was really scared. Like, I think previously before that, I even asked the nurse, like, could I just go ahead and have the C-section now instead of trying the regular way. So she told me no, and I am grateful that she told me no, because I got to replace kind of those feelings with positive ones that I had before, to let myself know that I am like normal and I can have a baby the right way. And I would say that all in all, as long as you go into it knowing that your birth plan isn't set in concrete, I think that's what made me so upset the first time that I ended up having a C-section, that I had this whole birth plan in my mind and this is how things were going to go. And kind of the second time around, I just knew from my past experience, you can go into labor and think that, okay, this is the way I'm going to do it. Like, I had read hypnobirthing and I was going to do this naturally and I wasn't having a C-section. And having that happen to me kind of taught me the second time around that you're going to have to just give up control to the process. Like, and whatever happens, happens. Like, so I would say get prepared to have a VBAC. If that's the option that you want, push for that, but you have to be prepared for all scenarios. So I hope this helps somebody. If you know anybody who is considering VBAC, or you're considering it and you want to weigh the risk and the options, you can always ask questions in the comments, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. And thank you for watching.